Hello everyone, this is Bentley. Uh, this video is going to be a little different. I have, you probably can see, I haven't shaven in a week. I've been crazy busy with work and life. And the video I wanted to have ready for this weekend, I literally ran out of time to do what I need to do. For a little bit, I was thinking I wouldn't put something out, but then I kind of thought I wanted to just take a break from the usual lessons, reviews, things like that, and tell a story. Now, granted, I've told some histories recently, and you guys have seemed to like those, so if you haven't seen those, there's the history of angelfish and how they kind of affect my family, and then the history of rainbow fish. They'll come up in the cards in the corner as we go through this, but you're going to notice also this video won't really be edited much, unless I, completely space out for 5 minutes or something. It's going to be pretty straight up and raw. I wanted to tell a story because, as a lot of you know, I work a ton, and that can be really stressful, but I'll probably do something bombastic in the title, because in a sense this is true, but I could almost say that aquariums prevented me from going homeless. Now that would be bombastic, right? But let me explain. In 2016, when I got back into this hobby, I had just had my last contract. For those who maybe you're new, you don't know, I work as a contract tech worker. I work in the hardware and software test field. Right now, I'm a lead test engineer for a platform-based team for Microsoft, working on a project in the HoloLens sphere of life. But before this, it's funny enough, at the same time, the last contract that I had at Microsoft is when I got back into the hobby. I was working on mostly the Ford product. So if you have a Ford or a Lincoln, their little infotainment system is actually powered by Microsoft OS. And that particular product is called Windows Embedded. And I know for you fish nerds, it's like, who cares? Stay with me, okay? I promise. It matters. But my contract had ended. Basically, Ford was doing the next generation of their product, and a majority of our test work, or at least the test work that required me and several other people, was all hinging on Ford's necessity for our work. There was some small work that the rest of the team did that didn't necessarily require Ford, but when Ford decided that we're moving toward our next generation, this is deprecated, we don't think we need the amount of work we do, which they did, they just don't know it. They don't realize it. They're not into software development, right? They don't understand that part. They make cars. My contract came to an end. I'd spent 4 years at Microsoft at that point. I started September 24th, 2012, and my last day was September 30th, 2016. I was recovering from a massive high ankle sprain in my leg that I had done by being an idiot and not paying attention to where I was walking in my backyard, and I stepped halfway on and out little is not the right, but a big divot that's to the side of my deck that, for the most part, is the area where most people won't step, and now has been filled in. And on my second date with the woman who has now been my partner, my lady, for the last 4.5 years, almost 5 years now. That's probably another story. It's a great way. Second date, take yourself to the hospital. Anyway, you guys can comment down below if you want that story. I'll tell it. But I'm just about to lose my job. And at first, I have this vacation plan that's already been paid for. I was going to a video game conference in Las Vegas for a game that I played for quite a while, Final Fantasy XIV. And again, stay with me, I promise. It'll make sense. I've got one interview before I leave. My boss, thankfully, for the last bit of time I was there, was like, yeah, just take whatever time you need to interview. We've got a little bit of work here for you to do until the end of the month, but if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. We'll still pay you anyway. Which, Anna, for some reason you ever watch this, thank you. So I go to this interview, I go on my vacation, I come back, things don't pan out, and I'm in, the end of October going into November, which is notoriously a really hard time to find contract test work in the tech field, especially in the Seattle area. Lots of people are on vacation. All the people you need to interview with are basically gone. Most of the big contracts don't tend to come up except for a couple times a year, and I was basically just past the last major hiring set, which is in September. So I'm staring things in the face. I've got money I've saved the whole time. And, I've got unemployment for 6 months. Not very much, but it was enough to pay my bills and keep looking for work. So I wasn't too stressed right away. But the whole time in the back of my head, I was trying to think, within a couple weeks of not really doing much other than a few interviews, and applying to a bunch of jobs, I was getting bored out of my mind. And when you get bored out of your mind, somebody like me who, is used to working a lot and now all of a sudden don't have anything to do, you start rat holing into lots of negative thoughts or trying to figure out what to do with your time. I was dinking around on the internet, I'm on YouTube, and I come across this video from the Green Machine. I see his beautiful planet tank. And the first thing that came to my head was this memory as a kid. I'm laying with my back on the floor, and the couch is here, and my legs are up on the couch. So I'm laying looking up like this, upside down, at the family fish tank that was in the living room. We had a few fish tanks at the time, at this memory, but the main one was this big 125-gallon community tank. And all I could think to myself was, man, I just remember watching the fish for what seemed like hours at a time and just being so at peace. I need that back in my life. I need that feeling. So I go and I get a Fluval Flex 15, and I order it on Amazon because I couldn't find one at the 2 fish stores closest to my house. Like a day later on Craigslist, I find this 150-gallon tank. And I get this screaming deal on it and get it delivered with a stand. Now you guys know that's my big rainbow tank in what used to be kind of my display room. And, well, the rest is history, right? But not exactly. The part that I've never really shared is it took me a while to find a job. I found a gig for a little bit working for Oculus, and it was extremely low pay. I was making more money on unemployment than I was doing this extremely low-level test job as a team manager. But they needed somebody very short term, and I looked at it as an opportunity to play with some toys. I would, be off unemployment for a little bit, but I still had some left, so I could collect more afterward if it didn't turn out into something better. And I'd just keep looking for work while I was doing it. So I do that contract for like a month and a half. I have a little fun. I was surprisingly stressed at that job, not because of the people that worked with me, but because the upper management just operated in a way that, to me, was not very good. I would come home from work every day, and I would sit in this recliner in my display room, and I would just stare at one of my basically 3 or 4 tanks at the time. It depends on when, but I only had tanks in the one room. I didn't have the multiple rooms quite set up at this time. I think I was just starting to build the room that I'm in now, where the Guppy Mansion is, and like my grow racks are. I was just starting to work on that. It was so early in what I was doing. And I would just sit and stare and watch my fish swim. And 9 times out of 10, I'd fall asleep in my chair. I'd just get so relaxed. I'd just nod off until my roommate would come wake me up and be like, "Hey man, dinner's gonna be ready soon. You wanna wake up and come eat? Do the rest of the stuff for the rest of the night." So I go another after that contract ended, it was really short. I go another 6 months going down this long interview process. I got this one job that I really want at HBO of all places. It's really excited. We're getting toward the, when we know they have to start pivoting away from Game of Thrones soon, and it was kind of an exciting idea of here's this company that's really done some amazing shows. What can they do next? They're doing these big streaming platforms. They're on all these different devices. This could be a really fun time. And it was going to be the very first tester on their Seattle campus. I unfortunately didn't get that job. I was in the final 2 and just got beat out in the final interview. And that's part of what happens in tech. It can be why some people in tech will be out of work for a year and a half, even 2 years at a time sometimes, just because you'll find those ones you really want. You'll be selective, you'll be picky, and you'll find the stuff you want, and then, there'll be some quality they like in somebody else. And then the desperation kicks in. Well, it was after that interview, I was really stressed. I was starting to worry. I was getting some help from a family member to make sure that, I didn't get behind in my house payments or anything, but my savings was running out. I was no longer eligible for unemployment. I was selling plants like crazy to help pay my bills. I was doing a little bit of YouTube back then, but, that's when I was really doing plants for profit, because I was quite literally paying my bills in many cases, or at least a portion of my bills, by selling aquatic plants. So in a sense, all these aquariums, despite costing a lot of money, made it so I didn't go homeless. It's kind of crazy to think about that for a while, when I would doubt myself, I was having trouble. I was getting toward that dangerous time where I was going to hit the holidays again and there'd be no contracts available. It was late September going into October. I remember this really distinctly. So I would, every morning I would come down, I would feed my fish, and then I would sit in front of a couple of tanks and just space out for an hour. And it was something that helped me not stress out and do stupid things. It helped me stay calm and level-headed. And then I'd go back to my computer and I'd go job hunting. I'd look for jobs. I'd apply. I'd look at my resume for each one and just give it little touches here and there. I remember on my previous computer, the one that I used at the time, I have this folder full of resumes, and there's maybe 100 different versions, and they have the name of what job I applied for tagged onto them, so that I knew, which resume I had sent to that company at the time. But after I would do all that, I would, I'd watch some like aquarium YouTube, and then I'd come down and I'd spend more time on my fish, or I'd go out to the fish store and just poke around, very rarely spending anything, or when I did spend money, it was usually like I getting the supplies I need, like fish food, right? And if it was not for this hobby, I think I probably would have like stressed out and lost it. And to some regards, my lady too. My lady had always believed in me, even from the early get-go. I can remember. This is a side tangent. I'll tell this because I think it applies too. I was on the phone with her while I was healing up, and I asked her. I said, "Hey, do you like aquariums, like fish tanks?" And she was like, "Yeah, I don't mind fish. I'm thinking about getting an aquarium for myself because I used to keep fish as a kid, and I kind of miss having them. And now that I've got my own house and I can put them somewhere, I kind of want to have an aquarium." And we joke to this day that we never would have thought it would turn into this. But I guess I should have seen it coming, because whenever I dive into a hobby, I dive like neck deep. I don't hold back. I don't play passive. I get really into things. And it's funny to think about. She was just like, "Yeah, that sounds good. If you think it'll be something good for you, then do it." So all you guys that like have a spouse that maybe doesn't like your hobby, just let them know sometimes it can drive you. Sometimes it protects you. Sometimes it's the thing you need to get through the hardest times. Because it's what got me through my hardest times. I finally landed a job at Intel. And I remember coming home the day I knew I had the job. And I sat in my chair and I looked at my fish and I realized that were it not for this hobby and some of the distraction I'd given myself through YouTube, I might have lost faith or my drive. It's like one big thing had always been I needed to get back to a place where I was stable, I could pay my bills again, so that I could move my girlfriend in. That was a big thing. But one of the other things in the back of my head was like, I need to get a job so I can keep all my fish still. I don't want to lose my fish. I'd worked hard to collect some of my rainbow fish, and I had finally, got close to having these guppies, and it was the ones I bought off eBay that had failed, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, I'm not going to let that get me down, but I don't know that I can find them again. I'll just do something else. I'll just keep rainbows and keep doing that, and I was slowly expanding, getting ready. I knew certain things were coming that were really exciting me in the world of rainbow fish. Gary Lang was going to come speak at my fish club and all these things. I was really jazzed for that stuff. It's so funny to think back now. It was like I didn't want to get a job so that I kept my house so much. And I mean, granted, nobody wants to lose their home, but I needed a job so I could keep my fish. and kind of prove to my girlfriend and myself, like, hey, everything's going to be all right. You can move in now, honey, with the crazy fish man. I think about that for a second, right? I'm getting a little misty thinking about it, just because it's funny and humbling all at the same time when you realize later what was in the back of your head, and it wasn't like, I'm going to lose the American dream. I'm going to lose my white picket fence in my house. No, I'm going to lose the place to keep all my fish. How crazy are we Aquarists, right? Anyway, I kind of wanted to share that story at a little different angle than I've ever talked to it before. Because usually I skip over the period of unemployment where I don't really talk about how at some points I was stressed out of my mind, and the only thing that helped me feel better was to sit in a chair and just stare at a tank. You know, I've talked on the Aquarium Guys podcast about how fish tanks are used in a therapeutic fashion for children with autism or people with suffering PTSD. There's a few organizations that work with former members of the armed forces in the United States and in Canada as well to get them into aquatics for therapeutic reasons. And while my case is, of course, nowhere near as severe, it's funny to think that, in a way, fish were my medicine. They were my therapy. And they were one of the things, not quite as strong as I want to, I would like my girlfriend to live with me so I can be the big strong protector and make sure she's safe and okay. But in the back of my head, it was like, yeah, I really don't want to lose my fish. What silly things we Aquarists do and think about in the worst situations. You know, the absolute worst wasn't losing my house. It was losing my place to keep all of my beautiful fish and my plants that I'd become so enamored with. When I got back into this hobby, I never thought that I would be as into fish as I thought I would be, or I thought that I am, rather. I never thought I would be so deep into plants, because I've never been a gardener, really. I just knew that I wanted to have live plants. I didn't want fake stuff anymore, and I'm sure I could figure out the easy stuff, because technology had come so far since I was a kid. And then for a while, plants were literally my way to eat. I can remember having weekends where I would have like 6 appointments lined up for people to come over to my house and buy plants. And I would literally look at, like, you know, okay, if each person spends $20, then I have enough money for groceries for the next week and gas in my car. Think about that. It was literally doing plants in a way to pay my bills, and my house became this like facility almost to tour, to show people, like, here's what you can do with plants, and like, look at this beautiful planet tank with all these big giant rainbow fish, and you know, those people are like, oh wow, that looks great, it looks great. And I'm like, yeah, you can do it. I could do it. I didn't know what I was doing like a freaking year ago. Now I do. You can do it too. I'll help you. And I started doing that on YouTube at the same time as I realized, like, if a dum-dum like me can figure it out, anyone can. Like, I was so horrible at, like, taking care of plants in a garden, right? Other than just, like, yeah, go pour this much water on them or whatever, that any plant I really wanted to try, I almost always failed at, unless my mother helped, because my mom has a pretty good green thumb. Or at least always has in when I was growing up. And then, like, something clicked in aquariums, and I look at, you know, the running river tank is right over here, it's full of plants. This tank full of plants over here, the plants over there, plants over there. I see them in everything in my tanks, and it's such a wild trip to think that in a weird way, if it were not for this hobby, my aquariums, I might not have this house. I might not have my career, because I might have given up and gone to something different. I'd changed careers multiple times already. Why wouldn't I change again? And I'd actually been thinking about that for a little while. But deep down, I didn't want to give up because I didn't want to lose my fish. Anyway, this has been weird and rambly, I know, but like I said, I've been crazy busy, and I just kind of wanted to share a story because of the video I wanted to produce. I didn't have enough time to finish it, but it'll come soon, don't worry. So I'd love to hear in the comments below, what do aquariums mean to you? Is it therapeutic? Is it educational? Is it just a pet? What is it? What do aquariums mean to you? If you've enjoyed little bits of story time like this, little dives into me, if you want to hear other stories, whether they're fish related or not, let me know. Normally I kind of wanted to save stuff like this for member content, right? Less fish related stuff, but I felt like having a little story time. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and stay awesome.